The annual Catholic Appeal. 60 years of changing lives in Western Massachusetts. Sharing, teaching, reaching. Respecting the dignity of life at all ages. Our Catholic mission calls us to be Christ in our world right now. Please donate to the annual Catholic Appeal today and help us put faith in action.
Coming up on this edition of Reel to Reel.
I'm Kathy Harrington. I'll bring you the report on the future of Catholic education in the Diocese of Springfield.
6 men are ordained as permanent deacons in the Diocese of Springfield. And we'll introduce you to Bob Stoops, one of only a handful of World War II surviving vets. These stories and more are just ahead on this edition of Reel to Reel. Hello and welcome to Reel on this Memorial Day weekend. With this holiday comes the final days of the academic year. But while Catholic schools are preparing for the end of the school year, it was the future of Catholic education which Springfield Bishop Mitchell Rosansky was focused on earlier this week with the release of the Pathways Report. Kathy Harrington reports.
Well, good morning, everyone. Looks like you're
Stopping for a quick visit with the children in Mrs. Santos' kindergarten class at St. Michael's Academy, Bishop Mitchell Rosansky and Superintendent of Schools Dan Balarjan took part in a lesson on shapes.
You are coloring in, what are they called? Rectangles. Very good.
Just down the hall, it was report time on the shape of Catholic education. The just completed Pathways to Faith, Unlocking Access to Christ through Springfield's Catholic Schools, includes recommendations to put the Diocese of Springfield on the road to revitalizing its schools.
Focuses on our evangelizing mission that we have in our Catholic schools, focuses on being excellent in all ways. It focuses on being truly accessible to everybody who desires a Catholic education, securing our financial sustainability of our schools, and empowering all stakeholders to continue to work for the benefit of Catholic schools.
To benefit the schools, Balarjan says the report must be put into action, and the next steps need to be taken quickly so as not to lose momentum.
The very next step is to assemble Bishop's Commission for Catholic Education, because we need that to be in place. The very next step with respect to operations is we need to allocate funding to hire the personnel that can support the initiatives that are coming out of this report. And at the school level, the very next step is for our office to go out and help them engage and to be able to market this report as it's connected to their future goals.
Though recent trends show declines in enrollment, Balarjan says there has been an uptick over this school year. A coordinated marketing and development plan for all 14 schools in the diocese is key to their future viability.
I think we hide our light under a basket too much with our Catholic schools, and we need to get the word out. And Pathways, the commission members were very insightful in what we need to do in our communities to promote our Catholic schools, because we give students the best, we really do. They have the tools that they need to succeed in life, from our values-based education in Catholicism all the way through the academics.
Pooled resources and centralization will save the schools money, but to succeed, pastors and principals need to buy into the strategic plan.
A lot of our religious women and men and our priests were products of Catholic education, and they've seen the value of what it is to live a Catholic life and committed themselves to be leaders within the Catholic community.
Responding to the study, Father Warren Savage, chairperson of the Diocesan Clergy Support Committee, says the Pathway Report highlights the critical role of pastors and priests in the effort to revitalize Catholic schools. Already briefed on the findings, the clergy are set for another meeting with Balarjan next month. Additionally, the Pathways Commission also highlighted the need to reach underserved regions, as well as provide Catholic daycare and preschools.
Preschools help to imbue values even into younger children. They learn those values. So I think opening preschools for younger children would certainly be a plan for our Catholic schools in the future.
The interesting thing about pre-Ks is that there are not free public option pre-Ks. From a mission standpoint, though, I think even more than that, if we can start walking with our families when their children are very young, right, and we can start demonstrating to them the benefit of a Catholic education, benefit of a faith-filled life, benefit of being connected to the Catholic community.
Baillargeon says the Pathways report identifies short-term, medium-term, and long-term recommendations to infuse vitality into Catholic schools in the Diocese of Springfield. I'm Kathy Harrington for Real to Real.
And you can read more on this report online at diospringfield.org and our website, iobserve.org. Last weekend, 6 men were ordained as permanent deacons. This came after 4 years of study and discernment. These men will assist at parishes and serve the people of the church, bringing Christ's love and mercy out into the community. Real to Real's Carolee McGrath was at the ordination and has this report.
As the congregation sang the servant song, 6 men processed into St. Michael's Cathedral, ready to serve. Springfield Bishop Mitchell Rosansky celebrated the special Mass called the Rite of Ordination of Deacons, in which the men were ordained as permanent deacons. The men are Angel Delgado of Westfield, Andrew Hogan of Springfield, Robert O'Connor of Northfield, John Miller of Springfield, Osvaldo Mendez of Westfield, and Michael Forrest of Hamden.
They are charged with bringing the presence of the Lord Jesus into the community.
Bishop Rosansky explained that the role of deacon came from the Acts of the Apostles when 7 men were chosen to assist in their ministry.
And these 6 men will assist me in my role as bishop in their assignments in the parishes. So I'm grateful to God that this day has arrived, that their formation has brought them to this ordination, and we're grateful as the Church of Springfield to see that God is calling those men to serve as deacons.
Deacons play an important role in the life of the Catholic Church as part of the ordained ministry. They assist a priest during Mass, they can proclaim the gospel and preach, and like a priest, they are also ordinary ministers of the sacrament of baptism. They can be married or unmarried, but cannot marry after they are ordained, and they're not paid. Deacon Mendez is the facilities engineering supervisor at Bay State Noble Hospital in Westfield. He and his wife Yolanda have 5 children. Their oldest son is Father Yerrick Mendez.
We're a close family, and the most important thing for us is God and to serve Him. So as a family, and not only my son and myself, but also my wife and my other children as well.
During the rite of ordination, the bishop calls the candidates forward and asks each to declare their intentions to be obedient to the bishop and his successors.
Lord, have mercy. Lord.
Then the 6 men lie prostrate as a sign of total submission to God. The bishop then lays his hands on each candidate. The 4-year diaconate formation program requires men to attend college courses at Our Lady of the Elms College in Chicopee 2 nights a week. Deacon Hogan and his wife Joanne have 2 adult children and 2 grandchildren. Joanne is a Catholic convert and says God has blessed them in their 31 years of marriage.
I became Catholic, and then we had our marriage blessed by the Catholic Church, so we've been together for 31 years, so it's just been a big adventure for us. Yeah, it's very exciting, and God works in mysterious ways for sure.
Each deacon has his own special faith journey story. Deacon Bob O'Connor had been away from the church for many years. He had a problem with alcohol, but came back to the church and says he can't believe what God has done in his life. You had a reversion to the Catholic Church.
Yes.
I know you had some struggles that you worked through. This is like just such a beautiful, continuation of your story.
It is. I think when we start handing our life over to God, He just keeps pulling you closer and pulling you closer. He shows you more love, and He just keeps opening more opportunities and just wants you to step in and just kind of let go of what you thought it was going to be and let Him just show you something so beautiful.
And Deacon O'Connor says he's looking forward to seeing what God's got in store next.
I'm beginning of a kind of a new relationship with Christ and His church, and it's exciting. I'm kind of walking about 10 feet off the ground right at the moment.
Springfield Bishop Joseph McGuire ordained the first permanent deacons in the Diocese of Springfield in January of 1983. Reporting for Reel to Reel, I'm Carolee McGrath.
The next class of deacons currently has 8 men in formation and will be ordained in 2021. Congratulations to all the new deacons, and you can view the entire ordination ceremony online at iobserve.org. And next Saturday, June 1st, the diocese will witness the ordination of 3 new priests to serve the Catholic Church here in Western Massachusetts. All are invited to attend the 11 a.m. ordination mass at St. Michael's Cathedral, which will also be able to be seen online at diospringfield.org and through a link at iobserve.org. Still to come on Reel to Reel, Dan Dumas has the latest news from the Diocese of Springfield, and Steve Kiltonic brings us the story of a World War II vet responding to a different call. These stories and more are all still to come on Reel to Reel.
The Chalice of Salvation, your weekly spiritual connection. I'm Pastor's Father Terrence Gale and your Chalice host, inviting you to take time out of your busy day and join us Sunday morning. We welcome Father Wayne Biernat from St. Michael's Parish in East Longmeadow, and together celebrate the 6th Sunday of Easter. The Chalice of Salvation, your spiritual connection, Sunday morning at 10 on TV 22 News, and coming up next on Fox 23 WXXA.
The Annual Catholic Appeal. 60 years of changing lives in Western Massachusetts. Sharing, teaching, reaching. Respecting the dignity of life at all ages. Our Catholic mission calls us to be Christ in our world right now. Please donate to the Annual Catholic Appeal today and help us put faith in action.
I'm Dan Dumas with your Reel to Reel news briefs. The 28th annual Grey House Spaghetti Supper brought together business leaders, community members, and friends of the North End Neighborhood Agency, all in support of a great cause. Sharon Roulier tells us more.
This year's dinner was more than just a time for folks to have some pasta. It was a celebration of a legacy, as the founders of the Springfield Agency were honored.
It is our 35th anniversary this year from the time that we opened up doors for services and the time that they moved into the Grey House. So just figured it's a really great time to recognize the women who we would not be here today providing the services to the community if it weren't for them.
The Sisters of St. Joseph founded Grey House, an organization that provides educational services, food, and youth programming to neighbors living in poverty in Springfield's North End. 3 of the founding sisters were at the dinner, including Sister of St. Joseph, Kathy Hamrock.
Yes, we're founders of the Grey House, but the work has continued with people who are willing to assist and help, and that's just a wonderful thing.
Around 500 people attended the spaghetti supper. It is the biggest fundraiser of the year for Grey House, accounting for 10% of its annual budget.
So it really significantly impacts our ability to serve the people in our community and help provide services that help them break the cycle of poverty.
Grey House serves 450 families each month, totaling 5,000 people each year, meeting immediate needs while addressing the root causes of poverty.
Thanks, Sharon. The annual Pro-Life of Pioneer Valley Breakfast was held recently in Granby. Their guest speaker was a young man we featured on Reel to Reel in April, Christopher Duffley, a blind and autistic musician. In his talk, he drove home the pro-life message that everyone has value.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming.
To a sold-out crowd, 17-year-old Christopher Duffley kicked off the annual Pro-Life of Pioneer Valley Breakfast in Granby with the singing of the national anthem. Duffley, who is blind and autistic, was the keynote speaker and spoke of a mission possible.
that I am a huge pro-life advocate, I am pleased to say.
Duffley is the youngest of 5 children and was adopted by his parents, Christine and Stephen Duffley. Christopher was taken away from his biological father, his mom's brother, when he was a baby. The teenager, who attends a Catholic school in New Hampshire, has become a sought-after pro-life and inspirational speaker, telling audiences everywhere that every person has meaning and purpose. The young performer is booked at churches, schools, disability ministry events, and for corporate events. He also sang the national anthem at a Red Sox game and at other national sporting events. He links his pro-life message to his favorite praise and worship song, Open the Eyes of My Heart.
I've worked with people with disabilities for almost 30 years, and one thing I can tell you with complete and absolute certainty, people with disabilities are at the highest risk of being made dead. Whether it's through abortion, whether it's through euthanasia, whether it's through the post-birth abortion that's coming down the road, those types of things. When people attach value only to what you can do, what you can perform, how much money you make, what your net worth or your gross worth is, we know that people with disabilities are on the firing line first.
Massachusetts State Senator Don Humison was the honorary chair of the breakfast. The committee also organized a pro-life essay contest and artwork contest for students in grades 4 through 12.
I believe that people always deserve their human rights, and I don't really understand why people don't believe that that applies to babies that aren't born, because when they have their own heartbeat and everything, it's like it's their life and they're here too.
Holy, 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 I want to see you.
Finally, recognizing individuals who encourage and take care of people with disabilities was the purpose of the 29th annual Jericho Recognition Day. The event is sponsored by the Bureau for Exceptional Children and Adults at Jericho, an agency that receives support from the annual Catholic Appeal. David Martin attended the evening celebration last month and files this report.
Sister of St. Joseph, Joan Magnani, Jericho's executive director, and retired Western Mass news reporter Ray Herschel presented the Jericho Recognition Awards. The Family of the Year was awarded to the Tyler family from Longmeadow. Father John, Mother Jackie, and sisters Hannah and Emily. Emily is autistic, so the family has taken advantage of the advocacy, information programs, and support for parents that Jericho offers.
I think it's a huge honor, to be here today, and as my wife has said, that it's something that it's great to let others know that you're part of something, and it makes you feel good, and hopefully it's something that will carry on where other folks will get more involved and be a part of a bigger organization.
The Tyler family helped build the Jericho Ministry float for this year's Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade. Speech pathologists Hillary Jellison and Narissa Hall, the founders of Communicare, which is located in Southwick, received Jericho Humanitarian Awards. Their organization is dedicated to helping individuals with different abilities to become independent and successful in the area of augmentative and alternative communications. The Jericho Ministry has supported Communicare from its beginning in 2002, so it was especially meaningful for the organization to be recognized by the Jericho community.
I feel like Jericho believes in all of the individuals who come and who are part of Jericho, and just having them behind them is very motivating and empowering for them.
They create a space and a place for the community and a real opportunity for them to be their own community and part of our community at large.
Candidates for the Father Robert Wagner Scholarship are required to fill out an application from Jericho's website and must have some type of disability or planning to enter into that field of work. This year's winners were Dante Angelini and Lindsay Kiltonic, daughter of Catholic communications reporter Steve Kiltonic. In Holyoke, I'm David Martin.
And remember, you can always stay informed on all the latest news in the Catholic Church, locally and beyond, by logging on to iobserve.org. There you can read articles written by our Catholic communications staff, as well as view archived episodes of Real to Real. That's iobserve.org. I am Dan Dumas, and those were your Real to Real news briefs.
Bob Stoops is a veteran of World War II and D-Day. At age 96, he is one of only a handful of surviving vets whose ranks are dwindling daily. While Stoops answered his country's call to serve, he also responded to a different call, that of crafting religious emblems. Steve Kiltonick visited Stoops at his home where he spoke about his wartime experience and ministry.
When meeting Bob Stoops for the first time, you soon realize this 96 years young World War II veteran has stories to tell. The kind of stories which you read about in the history books or see on the newsreels of the day. Stoops' own story begins in Indianapolis, where he was born April 13, 1923. His parents separated when he was less than a year old.
My mother took off and we ended up in Chicago. And almost during the Depression years, you know. And thank God for the love that she had for me. She went all over the western part of the state and took me along, baggage, and trying to find work.
After graduating from grade school, Bob and his mom, Agnes, boarded a Greyhound for Seattle, where his mother found a better job. They stayed that summer before returning to Chicago so Bob could attend prestigious Lane Tech, an all-boys school. On December 7, 1941, the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, and after graduating high school, Stoops, like many patriotic men his age, joined the service.
My girlfriend, who I married for 65 years, she loved a sailor suit. So right after her prom, I went downtown Chicago to the Merchandise Mart, where they had all these military programs, and I saw this cardboard sailor, and I said, that's for me. So I ended up in the Coast Guard.
In the Coast Guard.
Isn't that ridiculous?
Stoops, a boatswain's mate, went to Baltimore for boot camp, then to Groton, Connecticut, where he learned how to detect German submarines or U-boats. In Brooklyn, Stoops was assigned to a small wooden hull boat called a cutter. With a crew up to 12, he would spend the next 4 years on board this craft.
It was called an 83-footer, and it had very little combat program. It had a 20 millimeter on it and 4 depth charges, and a mousetrap affection in the front which sprayed off 60-pound bombs. But that was it. It really wasn't made for a lot of combat.
While docked in Brooklyn, Stoops' crew found out they were bound for England. 13 days before leaving, he married his sweetheart, Marilyn.
We were in Poole, Dorset, the southern part of England. And then one particular day, we got a letter from General Eisenhower. Every ship got the letter, I imagine.
That letter explained they were to embark on the largest military operation in history, codenamed Operation Neptune Overlord.
That night at 11:30, we hit the English Channel, and we went over to France. But being dark, I thought I might have been the only boat. But as soon as daylight started to creep up, I could walk on all the boats almost. It was unbelievable that we're all going to the beaches.
It was June 6, 1944, D-Day.
I never left the Flying Bridge. I just knew something big was going on. And as a teenager, it's probably the first time I talked to God in ages, because I didn't know what was going to go on.
Stoops' boat was assigned to what would be the hardest hit of the 5 Allied landing zones.
Omaha Beach, yeah.
At Omaha, 10,000 Americans lost their lives during the initial days of fighting.
We were on the shoreline and patrolling back and forth about 100 feet off of the sand. And whatever the Navy told us to do, we would do, like rescue some people that were in the water or tow ammunition barges that were exploding, you know, just whatever.
The cutters of the Coast Guard saved more than 400 men from the English Channel during D-Day alone. This search and rescue operation went on for several months. After Normandy, Stoops' boat was stationed on the shores of Cherbourg, France. On Christmas Eve 1944, he was listening to American music and thinking of his wife and returning home.
We had a call that there was a ship torpedoed just outside of the harbor, about a mile outside of the harbor or less.
The troop ship was the converted Belgium luxury liner, the Leopoldville. It left England with over 2,000 American soldiers assigned to the 66th Infantry Division. The Leopoldville was just 5.5 miles from Cherbourg when it was torpedoed by a German U-boat. Stoops' cutter raced to the position not knowing what to expect. What he witnessed haunts him to this day. They found utter chaos and terror. Thousands of American sailors in the frigid waters of the Atlantic, many severely injured and without life vests or lifeboats.
When we went out there, it was unbelievable. There were other boats out there at the time, small boats, and they had their floodlights on this huge ship that was sinking. And I could hear people screaming and yelling and all that in the dark. And you could just see the bow of that ship, and it was slowly going down, going down, going down. And there was just several thousand young men on that ship from America. And they were coming into Cherbourg and never made it. And a lot of them were in the water trying to survive. Yeah. Yeah.
And your job was to rescue them, get them out of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Stoops remembers what he calls the spirit of humanity, where every sailor thought of his fellow soldier first, despite facing imminent death. 783 Americans were lost that night. 493 were never recovered from the 48-degree water. For the duration of the war, Stoops' boat patrolled the coast and the River Seine until May 1945, when they prepared to return to the United States. Stoops recalled praying at certain times during the war.
I did, and it was so unusual for me because at that age I didn't know how much I needed God, you know.
What role did faith play during the war for you? Was it something?
Well, it must have played a huge role. I come home unharmed, close to shells and everything, but had to play a huge role. It doesn't say much for the poor guy that was drowning, but for me.
Stoops ended up briefly doing guard duty on Ellis Island before going home to Chicago after the war ended, when the atomic bombs were dropped on Japan. He was finally reunited with his wife, Marilyn. After the war, Stoops settled down in Indiana and got involved in the jewelry business. He eventually moved to Attleboro to further his career. Stoops had 5 children, the fourth of whom is Bob Stoops, Jr. Stoops is a parishioner of St. Mary in Westfield, where he and his wife Vicki are coordinators of the Take and Eat ministry program and CCD teachers. Bob said growing up, his father never talked much about the war. But returning to Normandy a few years back as part of a family reunion helped release some demons from the war.
I think that helped us as a family, but also helped him, I think, to kind of maybe relive some of that a little bit and feel a little more open talking about it, because he was able to talk to other veterans over there, and which is, they share their stories. You know, they can't share with us, they can share with each other.
At Normandy, Stoops received a citation for being a veteran of the Normandy invasion. Recently, Stoops discovered a newfound ministry, crafting jewelry into religious faith emblems. It's something he's passionate about.
I find it to be a gift to have at my age that gives me something to do, and it gives me something that I like to do.
Part 2 of Bob Stoops' story, which will air on an upcoming edition of this show, will feature the creation of his religious emblems. For Real to Real, I'm Steve Kiltonick.
And we certainly thank Bob Stoops for his service. And this weekend, we also pause to remember all who have served our country. It's important to not forget the true meaning behind Memorial Day. Remember, for updates anytime, head over to our news and information site, iobserve.org. We also update our Facebook page daily with news of what our reporters are working on, so check that out and like us at Catholic Communications. And also a friendly reminder to those who have not yet made their donation to the annual Catholic Appeal. Funds from the ACA help numerous ministries and services, including this weekly news magazine program. Make your donation today at diospringfield.org using the safe and secure online donation page. That's diospringfield.org. And we will be back next week with the ordination of 3 new diocesan priests, right here on Real to Real, your window on the world around you. See you then.
Real to Real is a production of the Catholic Communications Corporation, funded in part by the annual Catholic Appeal, and the support of you, our faithful viewers.